Hello everyone. Today's session is about single sign-on in between CentreStack and Microsoft Office 365 Azure AD. On the left-hand side is the Microsoft two browsers. One is on the left will be the Microsoft Azure AD side, and then on the right will be the CentreStack side, and I'm going to show you how to configure both to point to each other. So now on the left-hand side showing up was the App Center app portal from Microsoft. And you can see you click through and it gets to the CentreStack without the CentreStack side of the authentication, but the Microsoft side of the authentication. And the right-hand side, we just logged in using CentreStack authentication, but either way, it's going to the same set of files and folders. So that's the end result we are looking for. That's what we wanted to do. So now let's go ahead and see how we are going to set up. The single sign-on is a per tenant setup. So each tenant can have point to different Azure Active Directory. And in the tenant here, we already got a user who belongs to the Azure AD. So what we are going to do is go to group policy and set up single sign-on. The single sign-on here is called SAML integration, SAML. It's a kind of standard to integrate two different entities together. One is the identity provider and then the identity consumer. So on the CentreStack side, it's the identity consumer. The first thing you do is you're going to paste that URL into a browser, so then you can see the entity ID showing up. So that's an XML showing the CentreStack side of the identification. And this entity ID is super important because we're going to be using it on the Azure side, Azure AD side, to set it up. On the right-hand side, we are now going into the admin center, and then we're going into the Azure AD, Azure Active Directory. And this is a new portal. The Microsoft has two portals. One is the new portal, one is the classic portal. And in the new portal, you're going to the app registration. I already got it working, but don't worry, I'm going to kind of delete everything and then restart and then show you how to get it done again. So this is the app ID I'm talking about. That app ID needs to match the entity ID showing on the right-hand side of the screen. So as the other URLs I'm showing you here. So I'm showing you the end result first, and then I'm going to wipe everything from the setup and start all over so you know what needs to be done with the new portal. And then also at the end of the session here, I'm going to touch upon the classic portal in Azure AD. So the first thing, you're going to give it a name, and then you're going to give the sign-on URL. So the sign-on URL is going to be the entity ID provided from the CentreStack side. And the sign-on URL is not the app ID URL yet. We're going to get to it a little bit later. You can switch into the source view if you want to copy paste out that entity ID and then just paste it into the Azure AD side. And then you can create the app. So we have the SSO demo 4, and we need to open up the properties and we need to change the app ID. I know I will not be able to change it here because this app ID has to be unique. So the moment I'm trying to save, it's going to prompt me and say it's a duplication. So I already got the SSO demo 3 working, so I need to this SSO demo 4, I need to delete this, and I need to go back and delete the SSO demo 3, so then I can set everything up again to show you how things are done. So I'm going to delete everything now after I got everything working. So it's deleted. And now let's go ahead and go to new application registration. So just give it a name. I call it SSO demo 5. I find it the easiest if the name doesn't contain any like space or dash or underscore. So it's the easiest thing to get it done. It could be some previous limitation, but in the past, if there's a dash, sometimes it doesn't work. So now I fixed the app ID to be exactly the same as the entity ID. So you can remember this as, the CentreStack is providing a consumer entity, and then the AzureAD side needs to point to it. And after we create the application and then set the app ID, that's pretty much it. But on the AzureAD side, you still need to assign that to users. So this step is pure AzureAD side, relates to the app. If you're an AzureAD administrator, you pretty much know what I'm doing here. But in order for the demo to work, to show you, you can go to the Microsoft application portal and click through to CentreStack. We need to assign the newly created SSO demo 5 application to a group of users who will be doing the demonstration here. So I have a few test users. So here's a test AzureAD account. So just pick everybody. Not a lot of users here, but just pick everyone to add it to the application. So now I've just done assigning the application to the users, and you can see later in the classic portal, the way to get it done is a little bit different. This is kind of like an optional step. I'm trying to use a application icon, so just kind of for fun, for testing purposes only. Find a bird, so a bird icon, just put it in. In the real scenario, you probably want to use some kind of CentreStack icon or your own app icon to make it easy to identify in the application portal. But now I'm just using a bird icon. And there you go, the bird icon showing up. So we click on it, and there you go. It clicked through directly to CentreStack, and then goes directly to this folder we created. This folder is our kind of a marker folder. So if it lands in this folder, we know exactly that this folder belongs to the administrator at centrestack.com. And we can also do a quick sanity check to, on the right hand side, log in into CentreStack so that we can see and verify the two folders are exactly the same. The two views are exactly the same. So that demonstrates how you can, in the Microsoft AzureAD and single sign-on, and click through via an application tile marked as CentreStack, and click through to the CentreStack side. And what I've shown you, it's kind of like just 50% of the configuration. That's the as a quick review, we started off from the CentreStack side, like check in the group policy, check that checkbox in single sign-on, and we got an entity ID, and then we used that entity ID and created an application in AzureAD. So now, besides that entity ID, and we still have a bunch of parameters like the one, IDP endpoint URL. What's that value? To get to it, you need to open up the endpoint. So endpoint, I need you to pay attention to the very first parameter and the third parameter in the Microsoft AzureAD portal. The first parameter is the federation metadata document, and the third parameter is the SAML p sign-on endpoint. I'm going to copy both into a notepad so you can see side by side what those endpoints look like. So I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger so then you can see. So typically the URL look like login.microsoftonline.com and then some GUID and then /SAML2. So that's exactly what we are going to put in the endpoint, logging endpoint. So we took care of that, and then there are three parameters, all are very similar to each other. One is about the email, one is about the giver name, and one is about the surname. So we need to do a little bit of parameter mapping here, because on SAML integration is all about matching up two sides, A trust B and B trust A, and now it's mapping the parameters. So on our side of the system, we may be calling that the email, but on the AzureAD side, it may be calling it as the name. So this is just a way to map one parameter to the other from two different sides. And it's fairly straightforward, and it's quite mechanical. You just go to open up that federation metadata documents and then scroll down to the middle of it, and you're going to see that claim type, and then just grab that URI parameter, which is actually an attribute in an XML element, right? So the element is referring to the name and the display name of the user. So just get it and then copy it out. So we want to get the name, the given name, and the surname. So three parameters matching the three URIs in the parameter. So after that, it's going to say, hey, CentreStack using the name parameter from AzureAD as your email. And the last one is the IDP metadata. You just copy the source from the XML from the federation metadata document and then paste it into the text box. So it's just grab it as it is. When you see IDP, it may sound quite technical, just the term of it. IDP refers to identity provider. So AzureAD is one of the identity provider. So with that, we are just done 100% of the configuration. As a quick rewind of what we've done, we started from a CentreStack side and then create an app in Azure, and then come back and finish off the parameters in CentreStack. Now on the left-hand side, as we talked about a little bit earlier, I want to show you how the classic portal look like. Last year in July, we recorded the same session, and the same session was recorded with the classic portal. Back then, there's no new portal yet, so everything is in classic portal. And in classic portal, the assignment of the users to the app is a lot easier. It's just in the same tab. You just click through to it and you can quickly get to it. But if you compare the new portal with the old portal, the information that are available are pretty much the same in between the two. It's just a personal preference and how familiar you are with one or the other. But eventually I would say Microsoft is pushing everybody towards the new portal and then phasing out the classic portal. So here's the same end result. Thank you.